I've been searching for the right bass strings for over 20 years, and I think I finally found them. I wanted something that could have some attack, but not be too bright. Some fatness, but not get in the way of the kick drum. And to be comfortable to play. And I think the D'Addario XL Nylon Tapewound strings are my new go-to strings. I'll play you some demos for them in a second, and I'll also describe sort of how they're different because they feel and look very different than any other string you've seen. But they play very well and they sound exactly like I wanted strings to sound. Before we go any farther though with helping you be a little more creative with your music, I just wanted to ask you to leave any comments about your favorite bass strings down below. I'd love to check them out. I'm always experimenting with new strings, but I think after you hear these demos and after you try these out, you might be convinced as well. I'd also like to ask you to like and subscribe because we're going to keep coming with great lessons. So first let's listen to this song here. This one is not mastered, but you can hear how round and warm the bass is here. So that track is not mixed at all. There's no EQ really. I've just got a amp modeling plugin on the bass, which was recorded direct through an 1176 style compressor, and I have some multi-band compressor. Here it is, soloed out. And there you hear both a fill high and low. And when you go high, it doesn't feel like you're playing, like, it doesn't pierce out at you like some more traditional strings will. And when you go low, it feels still consistent. The round fatness of these strings are really what appeals to me. And in this next demo, you'll hear another really cool aspect of them. This one is more mixed and mastered. So what I want you to listen for is like that growl and the attack of this bass, right? The way it's cutting through. And I've mixed in some a fuzz effect on top of it. But listen to the thwack and the plock, technical terms obviously, and the growl that this bass has without being like in the way of the guitars or any other instrument. And we can listen to that soloed out a little bit. So it still has that thwap, which you need to cut through, but it's also got just a really pleasant, warm roundness to it, and a great sustain as well, which we'll hear on this next song here. And the thing I want you to listen for here is just how its tonal characteristics sort of pull it away from the guitar a little bit, because it doesn't have as much high end, or it doesn't have high end in the same way, and it doesn't compete with the guitars as much for frequency, but it also sits next to the drums better, and it hits through with that attack where you need it to hit through. I'm going to solo that out real quick for you. There's some distortion and maybe a little reverb mixed in there. But hear that clicky attack. So now let's move on to the strings themselves. I don't know how well you can see this, but they're basically all black, and it's like I guess like some sort of nylon tape has been wound around the strings. It feels, when you play them, much like this sports shirt that I'm wearing, sort of a breathable mesh sort of sports shirt or pants or something like that, which is really good if you're playing a long gig. Like I used to play 3-hour gigs and wished I had strings that were this easy on my fingers. But it also takes some adjusting because, like I said, I've played bass for 20 years, and to just have such slick strings is a little different, but you get used to it very quickly. The upside to that, like I said, is that there's way less fatigue. But if you want to do like pick rakes, or if you like the sound of fingers on the strings, then you're going to lose a lot of that because there's not really any texture here. It's very smooth. And so I guess, you have to figure out if you are depending and if your style involves a lot more fret noises, which, who knows really? You gotta look at yourself in that respect. The other thing is that they don't seem to hold a tune quite as well as more traditional strings I've used. And maybe over time that will even out. I've had them for about a month. They still sound really good after a month. They haven't lost too much of their brightness. But I do find that I have to tune them slightly more frequently than traditional strings. At the same time, it's not like I'm tuning them at the end of every song or anything. It's not at all obtrusive. So that's another consideration. And finally, the last thing I would say about them is just that they seem to bend a little differently than strings that I'm used to. I would almost describe it as like being more like a guitar string where you get a little more bend out of it, which is nice. It's just different and it takes a little getting used to. So I'm going to put a link to these down below if you want to pick up a pair. I really enjoy them. They sound incredible to me, at least for the types of music that I do. They give me the exact tone I want with very little effort in the mixing, and they feel good to play. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe. And also don't forget to tell me what your favorite bass string is.